Top 3 Secrets of Effective Deposit Acquisition. I'm Kathy Heckman, SourceLink's Marketing Director, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions regarding the content covered during the webinar, you can click on the Questions tab in your audience console and submit your question. We will try to answer these at the end of the presentation, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. If you have any technical difficulty, feel free to alert us in the questions panel. I'd like to introduce you to today's speakers. Dave Funston is SourceLink's Vice President of Financial Services Strategy. Don Batelson is SourceLink's Director of Marketing Analytics. And from Path Interactive, we have Superstar Client Director Matt Perlman joining us. So just a little about our company. SourceLink and Path merged in 2018 to form a data-driven direct marketing agency. We now just operate as one entity with 2 names. Together, we enable marketers to reach their clients wherever they may be seamlessly. Without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Dave to kick us off. Dave?
Thanks, Kathy. So Matt, Don, and I are really looking forward to this webinar, which is based upon our normative and best practices information. So things have really changed for banks and credit unions for attracting and retaining desirable customers. First off, the competitive landscape has really changed over the last few years. Being small and local isn't as a competitive edge as it used to be. Instead, players with compelling digital customer experience are winning big and increasing their market share. The big 3 banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan, and Wells Fargo, have only 24% of the U.S. branches, but took in nearly 50% of new deposit accounts last year. In contrast, regional and community banks have 50% of the branches, but took only 20% of the deposit growth in the last 3 years. Digital banking has also changed the competitive landscape. Many of the larger banks, such as Citibank, Bank of America, U.S. Bank Corp., HSBC, have reportedly set aside dedicated funds that range between $2 to $4 billion for their digital platforms and technology innovations. JP Morgan alone has reportedly had a tech budget for 2018 of $10.8 billion. And for 2018, there's a marked rise in digital banking IT solution sales in the U.S., especially within the community bank and credit unions, indicating that even the mid-sized banks are getting serious about executing their digital strategies. Finally, in looking at cash bonus amounts, which really drive a lot of the check acquisition campaigns, over the last 3.5 years, all cash bonuses have increased only 4.8% per year, but the max cash bonus has increased over 31% per year, indicating that certain banks are segmenting their markets, target markets and audiences, and promoting more aggressive offers to more desirable prospects. Also, consumer preferences are changing. The opportunity to attract new customers to a bank or credit union is reducing. 20 years ago, about 20% of the population was shopping for a checking account. Currently, only 11% of the consumers left their bank in the past year, according to a recent Accenture study. This year was the turning point for baby boomers. During 2019, baby boomers lost their lead to millennials as being the predominant population. As we can see from the yellow line on the chart, millennials will have a significant impact on the economy starting now and for several decades. Why this is important is that each generation consumes media and buys financial products very differently. Baby boomers generally prefer to go to a branch and conduct financial transactions, while millennials prefer online transactions. To maintain or increase their market share, banks and credit unions need to be prepared to shift their media and application systems online in order to stay relevant and ride the wave of the demand of the millennials. Lastly, accustomed to now high service levels from the digital-first merchants such as Amazon, Netflix, and Spotify, customers are finally expecting the same sophistication and service from their financial providers. This means a seamless customer experience between channels and an easy account opening experience. So in light of these changes, the competitive environment and consumer preferences, we've identified 3 key strategies that consistently grow your bank or credit union with profitable customers. The first one is segment your markets. Not all markets are homogeneous. Think about your own branch network on how extremely different these markets can be. You might have branches in urban, suburban, and rural locations, all looking very different in the type of customers they attract. Yet most banks apply one targeting model for all their branches in their network. The second strategy is segment your target audience. Not all prospects are homogeneous, yet most banks have one offer and one creative approach for all their customer acquisition efforts. As indicated in the analysis of our cash offers, certain banks are already aggressively segmenting their target market and communicating to them very differently. And finally, if you're properly segmenting your market and your audience, this enables a bank and a credit union to establish or to hyper-personalize their market communication. 98% of consumers are more likely to do business with a financial institution that offers very personalized experiences. Personalization can also make consumers 10 times more likely to be your best customer. So Don, if you could take us through the process of segmenting markets and audience, that'd be great.
Thanks, Dave. I'd be happy to. Let's go over some details on how we segment markets and audiences. It's done in two stages. Step one, we segment the markets. Step two, we segment the audiences within those markets. So, okay, we segment markets because branch networks can vary differently or significantly relative to population density, demographics, or buying behavior. Furthermore, branches may have different pricing options, available products, or application methods. But what is a market? A market is defined as the trading area for a branch, and a trading area is defined as the geographic boundary that encapsulates a majority of that branch's customers. Therefore, if you have 25 branches, you have 25 markets to consider. And each one is going to be slightly different, as Dave pointed out. But dealing with 25, 50, or 100 markets independently isn't practical, nor is it required, because there are enough similarities between some of the markets that they can be treated together. And the process for finding these similarities is called clustering. Now, clustering is a statistical tool that groups similar items together, and we can apply that technique to cluster the geographic markets around branches and then build separate analytic models for each cluster. Since the markets within the same cluster are more homogeneous, the models are more relevant and perform better. Now that we know why we cluster, let's discuss a little more about how it's done. So this map is an example of a branch or market clustering which was performed. And the first thing you'll notice is that it's not geography based. You find red, blue, and green dots all over the place. So the variables which were used to cluster these didn't have a strong geographic bias. The way we go about clustering branches and their markets is as follows. First, of course, we define each branch's trading area, as we discussed before, and then we select and identify all the customers and prospects within that trading area. We collect all the available data for those households and individuals which will be used in the modeling process. Now, most of this comes from our consumer file, but additional variables are created for a branch's customers at the branch level. We calculate a branch or market score for each of the modeled variables that we gathered in the previous step based on the mean of the prospects within that branch's trading area. And what you end up with essentially is a row for each market or each branch with thousands of potential variables to use in the clustering process. Now, the clustering process is an iterative process where you select the variables and look at how it clusters the markets, looks for differences between the branches, similarities within the clusters. You can have too many clusters, was the point I was trying to make. You've got to find a balance between what you can execute against and what are the right number of clusters in terms of homogeneity within the cluster and heterogeneity between the clusters. There are statistical measures which help people understand where those points are. But again, it's a balance. What can you execute against versus what is the most optimal clustering strategy. So after we've identified the unique markets, we can develop targeting models which produce incremental customers. Again, to recap, we cluster branches and markets, and then we build models looking for customers among the prospects within those clusters. So at SourceLink, we've developed a systematic method to develop and implement models for our clients. This best practice approach ensures that thousands of potential variables are identified, properly transformed and measured for relevancy to create the most discriminating targeting algorithms and actionable segmentation schemes. Now you'll notice if you look above that these are pretty generic phrases. Construct the model is one step, not very descriptive. But that's because we allow for latitude for our statisticians to use the right tool for the job, whether that be a decision tree, a logistic model, or a neural network. Above all, the process guarantees that models are optimized for a specific objective gathered in step one. And finally, we take into account the overall profit impact of the application of the model. The profit impact considers all the data and implementation costs balanced by the effectiveness of the model, resulting in a targeting process which is the best fit for your marketing objectives. At SourceLink, our consumer file is called AccuLink, and this is a description or a picture of it, generalized. It contains about 270 million records from multiple sources that we merged together to create what we call a 360-degree view of our prospects. It has about 2,700 variables. Several of them are proprietary that only we have, and all of them are available for modeling. Now, in addition, we do create some client-specific variables at a branch level, things like average checking balance, total deposit balance, penetration rate, things of that nature. Now, you might be familiar with propensity modeling to identify responders, or even two-stage models where the result of a propensity model are multiplied by the expected size of the transaction as predicted through a linear model to create a separate score that is used to rank and order the population. Well, we do things just a little differently. We do, in fact, build two models, and we build two models for each cluster. One is a propensity model designed to predict the likelihood that a prospect will do what you want them to do, like open a checking account. And then we build a linear model to predict the size of the balance of that account once opened. But instead of multiplying the two together, we treat them independently in a 10 by 10 matrix and use it to create segments based on both propensity and balance to target the prospect groups with the right offer and the right message. And in this example, you can see we've created three segments: affluent, mass affluent, and mass, which will receive different treatments, all designed to maximize ROI. This is an example of a two-stage model's performance. And on the left-hand side, we have stage one. It is a propensity model, and you can see the curve. It's predicting the response rates from 0.47 at the top down to 0.18 on the right. It's a very consistent curve that you're likely to see. Over there on the right-hand side, this is stage two. It's designed to identify the average balances, which are indicated by the bars. And you can see the very good job that this model did in discriminating the very large balances, above 6,000, almost to 7,000 that occurred in decile 1 and 2. What's interesting is that the response rate curve, when we transfer it from one to the other, is inversely related. As the balances go down, the response rates go up. And we have to use that carefully as we determine profitability. So to summarize, the left chart is used to optimize response. the right side is used to optimize profitability.
All right, we ready for a question, Don? Let's shoot a question out to the group. All right, we're going to load a poll for all of you. On your typical acquisition efforts, how many unique customer segments does your bank or credit union target with unique offers, creative messagings, and channel mix? Is it one segment with the same offer and creative, 2 to 3 segments, unique segments with some variance with offer or creative, 4 to 5 unique segments with an increased variance of offers and creative, or 6 or more unique segments and a variety of offers and creatives? So everybody take a minute to answer the poll so we can have Don see what this audience has been testing. I would play some Jeopardy music, but I don't have any at the ready. All right, almost everybody get your answers in there. We've got over half of you that have answered. Give it one more second. All right, let's see what they said. Don, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so 70% have indicated 2 to 3 unique segments with some variety of offer and creative, with 25 saying one segment with the same offer and creative. So there's room for, I think, improvement and some gains that most of you can get from the market. You know, not by looking at segmenting the market along with segmenting the audience and using a variety of offers. So that was a very interesting poll. Thank you very much for that. And now I am going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to discuss personalizing marketing communications.
Terrific. Thanks, Don. Really excited to be speaking with you all today, and I think we've done a really fun job in looking at how we can talk about segmenting both your market and then your audience. And for us, it's really important that we take all those learnings, all that great information that we gleaned from our modeling efforts, and translate that into an actual plan that's specific to those audience sets. And as evidenced by the poll we just saw, you know, a variety of the people on the call today are looking at a couple different segments. So I think it's important that when we talk on the next couple segments here about hyper-personalization, we can keep in mind that all these strategies we're going to present to you shortly can definitely be different and or customized for each one of your marketing audiences. So in this part of the presentation, we are going to talk about our marketing efforts and some tactics that we can use, which are going to leverage the data we just gleaned from our market segmentation. And then we'll talk at the end a little bit about how we can visualize that data to ensure that when we are running marketing efforts, that we're report things properly to get a good sense of how things are performing. And it's a good chance a lot of you are doing some of these services here on the right already, and I think you're going to learn a lot of different specific approaches today on the call that are within some of these different services. So let's get into it right now. So Don showed you before on our ActLink model, we have a variety, thousands for that matter, of different elements that we can analyze, and those elements should be used to the fullest extent as possible, because that's giving us very clear qualitative information about our customer. And there's nothing better we can look at than those branch-based information, the household, the financial services, the the demographic data. That all should very clearly indicate to us what keyword strategy we might go after, what the tone of voice should be, the specific words we're using in our direct mail pieces or even our email, the tactics that we leverage for paid search and paid advertising, what the creative's going to say. Because every audience might be a little different and requires different messaging. And even on social, not every social platform is the same. People have different proclivity on Facebook and Instagram than they do on Pinterest or YouTube. So our approach is really looking at the attributes from our model and how that's going to form a really clear and very effective tactic and communication plan. Now, from a digital side, before we can jump in and recommend really where to leverage all these different attributes, it really behooves us to learn a little bit more about our customers' online behavior. So we went ahead and we took a look at people in the United States who are Google users that are currently in market for checking services. which means they're hand raisers, they've done some searches online, or their online search behavior, according to Google, suggests that they're in market for checking services. And just like our AccuLink model database, and just like a lot of you on the call today, you have different segments, different marketing audiences. And what's really awesome here is that we're getting a sense of where people are spending their time online. So whether that's our avid investor and TV drama fan, again, that's 23% of our segment, of our audience here, that are in market for checking services, fall into this one bucket of being very avid investors and interested in TV drama. So you already can kind of see here, if you look at the unique affinities and unique interests, where you might want to put some advertisements in front of people to either activate them and make them aware of your bank, or maybe to stay in touch in front of them if they're possible transitions from other banks that could be closing. So we could be talking about the family-focused beach lover or the bargain hunting shopaholic, but even those names alone kind of give you a sense of that our messaging should change, right? And maybe even the tactics that we reach out to people on should be different. The different YouTube channels, different places on social. So all these things are really helpful and important, and for sure will help build our marketing plan. So if we have a good sense of what tactics you want to leverage, and we have a good feel on who these people are and what the right messaging should be, we can kind of deploy a nice strategy that'll be consistent to give people the right information at the right time based on where they are on their journey. Whether they're looking to make a decision right now and they're looking to convert and they're looking for your branch, right? They're looking to make a decision and go online and open an account today. Or maybe they're considering, right, this kind of little upper funnel area. They're considering banks or online comparing different promotional offers from one place to the other. Or maybe they're not even sure where they are yet. They could have just become through a life event, and they're maybe just not even aware that they're making a decision on changing their bank. But there are in that process of engaging and being made aware of different opportunities. So certain tactics make a difference based on what people are in their decision making. So let's talk about one. It's a really good chance a lot of you are leveraging direct mail currently. And if you're not, we can help you talk through how that could be a good strategy based off our modeling. But it makes a whole lot of sense. If you're going to drop a piece of mail in someone's actual physical mailbox, let's support that with some digital effort in their inbox, whether it's before they get the actual piece of mail or maybe right after it. But we can do this by segment, right? We talked about before how some of our audiences might have a higher propensity to make a decision, or might have a higher opportunity to deposit more money in their account. So those different segments cross over, and they can make a really important decision for us of what messaging to give to people based off what kind of mail they get. And we can do this across a variety of tactics. This is really strong to help reinforce what we're already doing. And we find that the incremental spend on that digital support helps glean a whole lot of value on something you might already be doing. So think of it as a way of kind of advancing something you're already taking advantage of. Another really good tactic is within our model, we will have digital assets like email addresses and a way to reach people digitally. So what we're doing in a lot of cases is we're taking that model data and we're reaching those people through tactics like we just talked about, whether it's supporting direct mail or maybe people that did not get any mail at all and we're trying to activate them for the first time. We think they're a right fit for us, but we're not really sure where they are in the process, so we're going to send some great information to them. Activate them, get them engaged, maybe drive them to our site, check out a video on our YouTube channel. But it's really a good tool to drive awareness and build a good large pool of prospects that we can then decide over time when's the right cadence to reach out to these people on a more frequent basis. And it's really common, or I'd say it's probably not uncommon, that for some people on the call today, you're leveraging your existing first-party data and sharing that with the publishers, like what we're showing here on the right side of the screen on our publishers' platforms. You're probably already sharing your data and saying, hey, Google, hey, Facebook, based off of user search behavior, can you find me other people like the list I'm sharing with you? And you should do that. It's a great tactic. But what we're seeing as an even better play is leveraging our data from AccuLink, sharing that directly with Google and Facebook, and running with it and saying, let's market to these people and let's see how we can do. And in some early case studies that we're having, we're seeing some good success and increased conversion rates of running the same type of campaign, like an A/B test, against our AccuLink database versus Google and Facebook's walled garden of data. Because we're basing our marketing on actual people, whereas Google and Facebook are basing it off of digital accounts, not actual people. So we're really seeing some good results there, and I would consider that as a really good approach for everyone on the call to try both of those things. Another fantastic tool. So Google and Facebook, Google and YouTube, one company. what they've made available to us now as advertisers, the ability to reach people on YouTube that have recently or previously completed a search on Google. So what we can say is, let's reach out to someone who's went to Google, did a search for checking account promotion offers, and then later, in the next week or so, went back to YouTube and started researching some opportunities, or even went to online on YouTube for some entertainment purposes. We have the ability now to market to people on YouTube based off of their search habits on Google, even if you or I never actually market to them in the first place on Google. It's fantastic. Also consider retargeting. If you get people to engage with one of your 6 or 15-second videos, get their attention up, and maybe they didn't take the action you wanted, they didn't, click on a start location page on your site, or didn't open an account yet, consider a nice remarketing strategy. Think of that funnel we talked about earlier, that people may not be ready just yet. So maybe give them some more information over a video. Let them consume it at their own leisure. Build some authority. Get some brand awareness out to them. Share some of the evergreen content about why your bank is so strong and why they should consider building a relationship with you. And to Dave's point earlier around the generational change, 6 and 15-second videos are a must-have. So if you all have any 1 or 2 or 3-minute videos about the branch or about a bank or about maybe some vignettes about your company, really consider scaling those back into digestible and chunkable 6 and 15-second spots. It gets people's consumption up, people get a good sense of it, they're really shareable, and it gets some kind of value-added benefit for you guys. Another really smart and really effective tool is conquesting. So if we're aware of banks merging, or we're aware of certain banks closing their locations, we should be ahead of that and looking to reach some of our customers while they're in consideration, because we probably will assume that's a pretty quick turnaround. So we can use a lot of different tools to help people while they're in that kind of transition phase come over to our branch. Take a look at us, give us a shot, open an account with us. Our experience will be as good, if not better, than your previous experience at Bank X. So conquesting should be a baked in part of your marketing plan. And the last piece that we think of as a part of your marketing mix that should happen is the ability to say, if I want to find people that looked online for checking account promotions and then later went online to open an account, we can track that. That's something that's trackable, that's all digital related. What's not as apparent in this day and age, which is becoming very available to us now, is the ability for us to measure when someone sees one of our ads and comes to our site, or sees one of our ads and later walks into our branch. We can start marrying those two down because of device types and different device usages. So we're able to see across device that if someone did a search on their browser, on their cell phone, and then later came into your branch, we can report on that. We won't be reporting on the individual user, but we can give statistics that both can be used to include marketing efforts, saying, I want to remarket to those people again, or we could exclude, and by not marketing to those, for example, you might want to exclude your current customers, so we're not marketing to your current customers, we're not marketing to employees of those branches. Really smart strategy I think you guys should take advantage of. And of course, across all these efforts, print and digital and email and direct mail, let's keep all this messaging the same. And if we're going to send it to 2 or 3 different cohorts and in different cadences, they might get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 touches. Let's keep those messages uniform along each one of those cohorts. Something really important. And the last piece I'll say is around that visualization area. Attribution is really important here. We're going to do a lot of different things to get people's attention and get them to come to our site and get them to click through and maybe open up an account, or maybe download a new white paper, or subscribe to our newsletter, or even click on a branch location page. All these things need to be looked into and accounted for when considering what's making the difference for me. And attribution is one way thing that we look at. A lot of people look at last click as the attribution model, saying the last thing that someone did is what I'll give the most credit to. And sometimes people will say the first thing that someone did, I'll give the most credit to. There's also position-based, which is giving kind of equal weight to the first thing someone did and the last thing someone did online, and giving less weight to stuff in between. Linear, giving flat attribution to all touch points digitally, and then time decay, saying the most recent thing probably gets the most weight to the thing that drove someone to open an account. But over time, our goal would be to create an attribution model that's data-driven, based off of your data, that says someone on average goes to my site, goes to my site, then leaves and watches a video, and then later comes back to my site. Or someone saw an email, came to my site, later went back to Google, did a click on an ad. Like all those different paths can all be bundled together and figured out what's the best approach. So let's pass it back to Dave to go over a little bit of those results we've seen so far in working through these models.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Don. That was great. Being a full service performance marketing agency, we track all our programs. So based upon the last 18 months of conducting over 100 separate campaigns, these are the results that we've seen when you segment your market, segment your audience, and then finally enable hyper-personalization of offer, channel mix, and creative. Note the average balances of these accounts indicate that the new customers have both the capacity and the propensity to be sold additional high-value products and services. And these results are sustainable, as indicated by one of our clients, which have been with us for over 10 years. The CMO states, for us to have a 10% year-over-year household growth, you know our marketing is working on all cylinders, especially since the industry is flat at a 1% growth. And finally, to underscore the profitability of implementing these strategies, we see a return on investment between 390 to 660% for the first year. Don, Matt, and I do want to thank you for your time today, and we hope you found the webinar informative. Now for some questions.
Thanks, Dave, Don, and Matt. We're now going to begin answering some questions that were submitted, and if any of you have questions and have not submitted them yet, feel free to do so. We did get a question from Mary. Matt, I'm going to shoot this your way if this is good for you. As a digital-only bank, it is hard to capture new accounts. What have you found is the most compelling? Rate, cash offer, digital tools? We have done social, podcasts, Google, etc., with not much success. So Matt, I don't know if you have any suggestions for Mary.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think a lot of that is in the absence of kind of modeling and looking at how we can be getting ahead of that and delivering media to specific segments. If we're looking at it purely as a proactive prospecting play, usually it's a combination of a few of those things. Usually it's a combination of giving somebody the right offer at first, and it's typically been financial driven in our experience, and then driving them to our site to have them engage with something. So for the people that were most at the highest chance of turning over to an account quickly, usually it was financial offers is what worked for us. But in the case where people were kind of researching, it was always our best effort to drive them to engage with some type of soft asset, like a white paper or some type of download that we can acquire their information on, to then drive them to an inside salesperson or to kind of drip on them with marketing automation.
Hey, Matt, and I'll add, this is Dave. We are developing currently models to target folks that will open online. And so there is a market out there, and there is data to indicate that particular type of market. And so I'd say with a combination, as Matt was referencing, the offer, the different types of content that you can provide that person that stimulates the engagement, but then also we're seeing some really great targeting that's based upon the data that's available currently. Thanks, Kathy.
Oh, great. All right, next question is from Julie. What are some offers and creatives that could break through the noise? Dave, you might want to take that one.
Sure. So it's an interesting question because people think that there's a magic bullet out there, and actually it's going back to a lot of the content of the presentation. If you do your proper homework in segmenting your markets and then segmenting your audience, what comes out of that, through that analysis is almost a intuitive sense about what's going to make sense to that particular market, or audience. And so in some regard, just by making a reference to the locality or where that particular customer or prospect is, will increase the response and activity, mentioning certain types of landmarks or whatever. Again, getting back to personalization. On the thing about offer, if you're sending, let's say, an offer to a mass affluent customer that has average balances somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000 at a bank, a $25 offer is not going to register for them because they are getting competitive offers sometimes up to $500. So you need to look at that particular segment and also where they're living and, hyper personalize their particular, offer and content.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Kathy.
I've got another question from Paul. What are the different types of conversions we can track online? Matt, I'm going to kick that your way.
Sure. Great question, Paul. I mean, I guess that's consistent or specific to each business, but in some cases, we like to track soft asset conversions, like whether there's a webinar watch or a video being watched or a white paper being downloaded or a pamphlet being downloaded. We also want to track any type of contact form submitted. We do a good job of tracking phone calls and being able to attribute the phone calls created to what keyword or what tactic drove that phone call. And then based on our ability to engage with the branch's technology stack, we for sure want to track the store location page clicks. And if there's like a specific page for a specific branch, we can obviously track all those things. And I think in some cases, for like back to kind of Mary's question earlier, if it's a digital only bank, we have to think about the different stages of their sales process and maybe where where the competition lies and what type of assets those companies are offering, and could we be tracking those as well? So anything we can gate to get our customers' information is important, but we don't want to do it too often. We want to get them involved in the family, in the fold, and at some point in time, look to ask for their information. So I like to do a little bit of that give and take. So give some free information, some free insights, opportunities to talk to someone, and at some point see if you can, it looks like they're ready to make a decision. Can we reach out to you? Give us your name and email, and we'll reach out to you to talk to you about these different type of account options.
Great. Thanks, Matt. One last question, guys. Bob asked, do you recommend the same agency partner manage the entire omni-channel strategy? I don't know who wants to take that. Matt, do you want to take that one too?
I think there's no dynamic that anyone on this call on our side has not been involved in which we haven't been successful, whether it's one agency running everything, certain agencies running certain pieces of the process. I think it's really important that someone's quarterbacking that, and oftentimes that falls on the client, and the client may not always have the internal resources to manage that. So you might want to find one agency if you're going to go with multiple. That's going to kind of be your lead for sure from an analytics standpoint, because what you don't want to happen is have too many cooks in the kitchen. You have one company sending out emails, one company sending out your print, one company doing your social, one company doing your digital, your paid search, and then you don't really know how they're all working together. So how do I know where to turn the valve up, and where do I pour more fuel in the fire, and what's working or what's not working? So I'd recommend you come to a fully encompassed agency that has the wherewithal to track all these things and be really effective in the reporting aspect of it. But if you choose to go in a different direction, or maybe you have a good internal team already and you're using outside agencies to augment your team, just make sure someone's kind of quarterbacking those efforts.
Great. All right, that's about all the time we have today for questions. If you had a question that didn't get answered, we'll answer them via email following the webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions, as I just said, just go ahead and email us those and we'll answer them later. Following today's webinar, you will receive a survey pop-up, and we'd appreciate it if you could provide your feedback on today's presentation. You will be receiving a link to this recording as well if you care to share it with your colleagues. On behalf of SourceLink and Pat, thanks again for attending and have a great day.